Hey, it's Nicole. Today I'm so excited to introduce you to Brenna McGowan. She is a friend that I've met through the internet, and I watched her become a rising star of copywriting. The question she asks when she visits you on her homepage is, are you ready to launch with clarity and confidence? Brenna says successful campaigns happen when your audience is primed, your messages have been vetted, and your copy connects with them. And that's what she's here to talk all about. Let's go.
Hey, if you're an entrepreneur who usually fast forwards intros just like this one, this is the podcast for you.
Brenna, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited.
I like to start the show every single way with guests. So let's jump in with the first question. How would you finish this sentence? You know you're an entrepreneur when?
When one day you love your business and then the next day you want to burn it all to the ground. And then somehow the next week you're back in love with it.
Oh my gosh, I love it. That is so true. Now, you've got to give us some context. Is there a story there we should know about?
I've been in business long enough now where luckily I recognize it, but where I'll just be like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like I'll freak myself out for a second. Like, oh my gosh, this seems really hard, or things aren't coming together like I want. This isn't working, or my mind plays tricks on me, even though like the evidence, we'll go with the attorney, like the evidence proves otherwise. And somehow like so much of this entrepreneurial, game, I guess, if you want to say it, it's a head game, but I know well enough to know that this is just a period, right? This is just something funky going on and it's not going to be like this forever.
I know that you also serve a whole lot of entrepreneurs. So I have seen so many feeling some pressure of the new year, and the pressure isn't always, just as you said, kind of a head game, isn't always the new year starting and not hitting a goal. It is their own pressure that they put on themselves. And sometimes I find that the entrepreneurs I've been serving, they're forgetting that we're in this business so we can have some semblance of some control. So how is it going when you know you have those days and then you serve those who have those days? How's that going for you?
I think that's the beauty of it. I am an entrepreneur and I serve entrepreneurs. So really being able to recognize it and help them kind of sort out what it is. And quite honestly, it's why I do what I do in terms of helping entrepreneurs. Like, okay, how can we build in space to serve your energy? I'm not what I would consider woo, but I do believe in energy. I believe that like people can feel it come off of us. And so when we can build that into our businesses, I feel like it makes it so much better. And I also feel like too, sometimes, and maybe it's just me, I'll feel like, oh, I'm not supposed to like have a bad day in business, right? Like I started this business, I'm supposed to love it, and recognizing, no, this is normal. And also using it as a refining period. Like, okay, is this just a bad day, or have I set up something in my business I truly don't love? And I'm going to need to tweak it to be able to become the entrepreneur and have the type of business I want to have long term, so that I don't get to the point where I truly burn it all to the ground.
Right. So tell us, what do you do and what businesses do you own?
Yes. So I am a copywriter and a pre-launch pro. So what I come and do is help businesses create pre-launch plans so that before they actually get to the point where they have an open cart or a closed cart, or even in an evergreen funnel, I teach them how to really dig into the desires of what their ideal customers want and create a content plan around it so that your content and everything that you do really does the heavy lifting of your launch or your sales period, which in a way just makes things feel less pressure, less salesy, less icky, and really creates an empathetic way to start selling to our people.
So tell me, what's your story? What led you to entrepreneurship? Was there a specific moment or an event, some type of experience? How did you know this would be your life's work?
It was by accident, honestly. I always joke around that I got into this business through vanity. I had a friend who was starting a new business and I wanted eyelashes and she needed help with her marketing. I had been doing odd jobs. I was a stay-at-home mom and I had done some email marketing, some social media marketing. And what ended up happening is I started to help my friend market her business, and people really were commenting on how much they loved it. I think the ironic part of it is that I started what I called a social media management business. And I truly didn't have social media at all. I always joke that this is like an underground world, this whole online business thing. And I didn't know that it existed till I kind of threw myself in here. I really wanted just a way to like make some extra money for my family, And so from there, I went ahead and just jumped in full force. And I recognized very quickly that I hated the business that I started. So from that point on, I pivoted very quickly into copywriting and doing email
Mhm.
copywriting for clients. I started to write all types of copy and eventually found myself doing launch copy. I took that like content, social media background and all of the strategy that I would do and started to mix it with the email copy and the launch copy, the sales pages, all of those things, and started to recognize that there was a real big hole in the online industry, which was people talking about pre-launch and how this warming up period before your sales period is often overlooked or skipped. And from there, I decided to niche. And that was about like a year and a half ago. And since I've niched, I have created a program around pre-launch. I've helped private clients. I've seen people have amazing results, like filling up 40% of their seats for their program or their course before their doors open, people having their first, six-figure launch, so many amazing wins. And it's because they've been able to tie in this like strategic pre-launch or runway before they actually open their doors and start their true selling.
Yeah. I mean, talk about
Wow.
like blue ocean territory. I remember
Right.
watching the switch. I remember you always like talking copywriting. And like, I feel like I just like got to watch the switch. So are you familiar with blue ocean strategies?
Yes, I am. I haven't read the book, but I'm familiar with the term.
I feel like it's a book that probably you like take out the PDF maybe and like got it. I used to get to teach at university, and that was one of my favorite chapters because it's such a puzzle until you can see it. So I'm so excited for you that you were able to see it through all the past experiences to be like, oh, right here, this is where I belong. Was there something else? So like what gave you the confidence besides eyelashes? Because those are empowerment for sure. But was there something else like even before that that you knew like I could do a few of these things? I can be my own boss.
Well, my husband, we've had our own business. He's been a contractor, although coincidentally, I became an entrepreneur and he became a firefighter. So we've always had our own business. I come from a family of entrepreneurs and my parents own a local publishing magazine. So I think there's always been like, this entrepreneur thing running through. But I think what ended up happening was I was about to turn 40. And at the time, I was working just on a contractor basis, working for a computer development company. And I just thought, I'm turning 40. I don't want to be someone's assistant for the rest of my life. I feel like I have something where I could really help people and build something bigger for myself. I did Whole30 right before I was 40. I was like determined to lose like 10 pounds. I just wanted to see if I could do like this goal. So I think it was a few things that happened back then. It was like I did Whole30. Whole30 helped me start my business. The vanity, I wanted eyelashes. I was at this point of this crossroads, like I'm about to turn 40. I had kids when I was in this day and age, fairly young, 25, right? So at this point, my kids are teenagers. And I just thought, what am I going to do after they're gone, right? I didn't want to be in a position where I had, empty nest syndrome or, was sitting around. And so I think it was just, there was a lot of like things that happened right around that time that made me go, okay, I think I can do this. And I just jumped right in. There was a little bit of a fire, but it's been more of a progressional, like, okay, step by step by step to get to this point.
Hmm.
Mm.
For
I
sure.
love it. I love it. I love it. So, Brenna, I find that when we have folks on the show, sometimes they forget to tell stories. And you, I think, have to weave so many stories always in copy. What is something that helps people get unblocked with stories? We recently did a podcast with our guest, Joel Freund. We kind of poked at Matt a little bit and how we could be vulnerable online without telling people that we're terrible.
Yeah, pretty much.
Our deepest, darkest secrets, but we can open up in really cool ways with the power of story. So is there something there that those listening right now for them to really understand why pre-launching should be the thing that they're thinking about? Can you talk us through maybe an exercise that you do or something that helps them unlock that?
In terms of storytelling is a huge component of pre-launch because of exactly what you're saying. We love stories as humans, but when it gets to a sales period, it's more of like, hey, do you want to buy my thing versus having this storytelling time built in. When I think about pre-launch is moving people up an awareness journey. So we're thinking about where is someone at right now And where do I need to move them to? There's 3 things that people need to believe before they buy from you. They need to believe that you are the right person, that your offer, your methods are the thing that's truly going to help them. And they have to believe in themselves enough to be able to go ahead and take you up on your service or your coaching program, that sort of thing. So when you can start looking at story and pre-launch through those 3 beliefs, you can all of a sudden start using parallels for stories. Even inside my pre-launch plan program, we walk through this exact step of like, how can we come up with the right stories? And when we talk about stories, it's not that stories have to be, fancy or over the top. What we really want as humans to feel like we're less alone, that someone else is like us, right? Using our everyday stories helps build know, like, and trust. I tell stories about like my pug. If you need engagement from your audience, just start talking about your animals, but really thinking about what is the connection point that brings someone where you're able to connect them to the point that you want to make to your story. So in pre-launch, we're thinking about, okay, what are the beliefs that people need to have? And then how can we tell stories around it to be able to show examples of how people can get the transformation in their life? Coincidentally, though, the other cool thing as of recently that I'm playing with and that I'm going to be actually adding to my program is using ChatGPT to help with some of this. So I think if you're getting stuck with stories, you can actually use AI to help jog your memory. So you can go in and say, I want to give an example why pre-launch is going to take the stress and pressure off your real launch. I can go into ChatGPT now and ask them for a story. Now, usually these stories, they're not really great stories, but being able to have a conversation with AI, it can actually help start jogging stories. I did this the other day. I was in my pre-launch. I'm actually talking about how pre-launch gives you an advantage. And I started to think, okay, well, give me a story where you have an advantage or an upper hand in life. And so all of a sudden AI was like, okay, you have an advantage when something they brought up was like when you have a map, like when you're out hiking and you get lost and you have a map. It wasn't the best story, but it started to like jog something in me that I was like, oh, okay, now I can go and use this story. And the funny story I'll tell you that I ended up using, which was I was thinking about, okay, what was an advantage that someone had? And coincidentally, I'm going to Las Vegas this weekend. And I thought about a story that my sister told me about college. She had this professor who could count cards, which, by the way, I looked it up, Matt, and it's not illegal in Las Vegas.
It's not illegal.
I guess
Yeah,
you
it's
count
not.
them. Yeah. I
Yeah,
was
yeah.
shocked. So they had this teacher talking about how he was like playing the system in Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas. And he would go in and he'd start winning so much at blackjack that all of a sudden they would like be throwing him out because they could tell he was counting the
Mhm.
cards and how he had this like advantage because of his photographic memory. And so I was able to use that story, not even something that happened to me, but because I knew this core emotional concept or core idea that I wanted to talk about, I was able to find a story. And it takes some practice to do this. But once you do, and this is what I love about pre-launch and content and email marketing, is because you get to tell
Mhm.
these stories and you get to be silly and fun and do it in a way that really captures your people, which builds this know, like, and trust, which helps you sell more down the line.
Yeah.
So here's the question. and Nicole always loves when I say this. For the non-marketer on this call, what is the difference between, I guess you'd say, telling all these stories during pre-launch versus trying to just build it out in your regular page or your regular funnel or whatever, like right when you are launching or right when you're asking for the sale? Isn't there some elements of what you guys are talking about that do occur on the website or in the actual funnel itself when you are live, so to speak?
Absolutely. I'm
Okay.
speaking to pre-launch because I'm telling
Right.
very specific stories during the
Right.
pre-launch. But yes, absolutely. Throughout your website, whether it's your welcome series, your websites, your landing pages, the story about you, all of this encompasses story one way or another.
Okay.
Matt
Nicole
often
looks like
stares at a blinking cursor and is like, what do I share about a given day? And so I love when there's someone else that's like, there's power in the story, every single story. And so what he will sometimes like suss out as like an idea for a story, sometimes we're like, skip, next, keep going. And then there'll be like this moment. He's like, yeah, but I look like I didn't do well or I didn't, solve that. And so it usually keeps him from like sharing a story.
yeah,
So, Matt, are you nervous that you are telling a story that's not going to paint you in a good light?
Yeah, there's always that element, obviously, as lawyers, some people have equated, not me necessarily, but like as the military and stuff. I mean, you go away to a school and you get socialized into this whole like world where all you're surrounded by is other law students and other lawyers. And before you know it, all you know is win lose. Like that's it. Everything for you is
Well,
win lose, right? And so
win, lose, and how to be very wordy in Times New Roman and like just all the words, therefore, and how
hey,
to, and what, like there's
my
like all
firm's hip
this.
with it. My firm is hip and with it. We use Arial, I'll have you know. So-
Yes.
but no, I'm just trying to say to you is like, because we go down this path of win lose, we just get so in our box, I believe, of our world where we have to think, well, the only way we win is by always winning. And in order to win, we always have to look good and we have to look, low risk. And if you expose yourself to the downsides of your business, or when you don't win the game, or you don't win the sale, or someone doesn't hire you, or you do something wrong, or whatever, any of those negative contexts, I believe sometimes, at least subconsciously, probably is what it is. We tend to go, oh, I don't want to do that because that story doesn't feel right, because no, that's not the quality of our work. That's who we are. And yet in the marketer world, they're like, oh, just go with it. Get over it. You know what I mean?
When I think about being vulnerable or telling stories or sharing more,
Mhm.
I never think it should undermine our authority of who we are in our
Mhm.
business. There's a way to be open, but not share either if we're going through things. I think space is always good, right? Because no matter what, whether you're an attorney, a marketer, we're the leaders.
Mhm.
We need people to believe that we can get them the transformation, that you can win the case. I definitely probably wouldn't be talking about a case that I lost last week, but you can show other sides of you as a human that don't disqualify you as the attorney,
Mhm.
as Nicole's marketer, me as the pre-launch specialist. I always talk about what I call the soccer mom test, whereas like I'm talking about stories that I wouldn't be talking to that mom that I just kind of know at the soccer field. I'm not sharing stories beyond that online because you don't want to step into that point where it starts to feel uncomfortable, vulnerable,
Mhm.
where the stories that I'm sharing are the ones that open me up and make people feel like I'm a human and they want to do business with me as a human, but that don't undermine or disqualify me as the leader in my space.
Mhm. Mhm. That makes sense. The soccer mom test. I like that. It's good.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think what I realized is, man, the pressure that when Matt shares, win, win, win. I think that's just it. Lawyers have to be always careful about any word that they put out there. And so you think all of it has to be transparent. But it's just like this little bit of a story. I was working through this with a client and we just kept running up against this one thing. And then how you work through it, right? It's in the how you work through it that you shared with us. And I'm
Right.
like, look how resourceful he was. Look how he figured out how to get through that sticky situation.
Right.
But you're not going to be so verbose that you are like, and then the business partner said this, and then it's not that, right? It's like
Mhm.
these little nuggets, and then you're just going to highlight like, but here, you want someone who can think through strategy. You want someone who can think, long term.
Right. Right. Well, Brenna, let me ask you this. When it comes to actually running your business, what's the most difficult thing about running the business for you?
That's a great question. There's a few things. My focus, I've never realized until I started this business, how slightly scattered I am. I think the other hardest part of business is not watching what others are doing and really staying in my own lane. I'm not the most outspoken person. I'm not the most extroverted person. I'm not the most introverted person. To me, I feel just kind of like a normal person. I realize we're talking a lot about how that's an advantage, but it can mess with your head too when you're in a space. A lot of loud, successful people talking about their wins, and which coincidentally, if I watch other people too much, makes me even more scattered, right? Because then I start questioning everything I do. I joke around I just need someone to tell me what to do.
Mhm.
There's so many different things I can do, from administrative tasks to visibility opportunities, to all of these things. So that I think has been the challenge in the business overall, is just okay, this is what I'm setting out to do. I'm not paying attention to anyone else and keeping my eyes on my own paper, if you will.
Right. I
This is the
imagine.
best answer we've gotten in a long time.
Yes.
Am I right? This
No,
is
it
the
really
best
is,
answer.
because you're around all these great marketers who have built amazing funnels, and yet you've been focused enough to figure out that niche down to the point where that's my sweet spot. It probably gets so tempting to know that these other aspects of funnels and marketing and social, and to go, you know what? Let me just stay here because this is the spot I know is the gold mine.
So, the Serial Entrepreneur Show is a bit about how any entrepreneur has the next idea, the next idea, the next idea, like on the heels of the next idea. Because there's so many things, but that you can leverage it as a superpower, right? Do you have a method on how you help yourself stay more focused?
Gosh, that's a great question. I wish I could be like, oh yeah, you just do this and this. I just came off of a time period where I tried to like recall my entire email service provider. I decided to rebrand while I decided to hold a huge online event, which I had never done before, on top of having, 3 kids, a husband, a pug, and 2 goldfish. There's just so many things. I think it's being okay with knowing that you're going to have these moments where you're scattered, but start really thinking of what are these long-term goals that I want and not get caught up in the day-to-day busyness of what I'm doing. The other thing that's been helpful to me is I had my dear friend Reese Spikerman help me put together a calendar where I'm really trying to time block. I've noticed that like where I'm not taking calls on Mondays and Wednesdays has been transformational for me, where I can really focus. Lately, I have started to completely remove and not looking at my phone over the weekend and getting more space in my head, because I think that's the problem with entrepreneurs, because we're constantly, or at least as me, I constantly have new ideas. So I'm constantly researching or looking or doing, which just adds into this like bit of chaos that I've had to pull myself out of to be able to accomplish the things I really want to accomplish and not be working tons of hours or going into a spiral in my mind because I'm so busy.
Brenna, what is something that an entrepreneur needs to know from you today?
I'm going to give like an unsexy answer. I think if there's something every entrepreneur needs to learn, it's copywriting. I'm not even saying this because I barely take on, copywriting jobs at this point. Copywriting is, sales in print. And that's not my quote. I can't think of who it is. But when you understand how you can use your words to convey your ideas, to help people find transformation, to help people get out of pain, to helping your sales psychology, copy is everywhere. It's what's on your website. It's what's in your emails. It's what goes into live videos. It's what's in your podcast right now. Like copy is everything. It's such a foundational skill that gets skipped. And I think entrepreneurs get frustrated because they're like, I do amazing things for people. Why am I not able to convey this and get more people to take me up on this? And it's because a lot of times there's, this lack of copy. And when you understand copy, all of a sudden you can get a lot clearer on your messaging, which helps you grow your business. So I realize what a huge valuable skill it is, because even if you have the money to hire a copywriter, you want to know you're hiring a good copywriter. I mentioned AI and ChatGPT. You still have to have these foundational copy skills behind you to even know what is coming out of AI, which is only going to grow over the next couple of years, to even know that this is quality stuff or how to edit it or tweak it. So that is my unsexy answer for today.
No, it makes
Thanks.
sense. I'm also even questioning nowadays with so many people who create video content and with so many people putting the subtitles on it, like what you might have conveyed, I guess you'd say through audio, whether it's on a podcast or on a video or whatever. You have to be careful probably the words you use and what the messaging is you're saying, because maybe it's more forgiving in a video when you're having a natural conversation, watching somebody do something on video. But with people reading the words on social and watching the video, but they're just reading your words, you have to be very clear on your messaging probably nowadays more than ever before, I would think, right?
Yeah,
Or
I
no?
don't think I've ever thought about it like that. Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
and when you do a video, when you understand these fundamental copywriting and messaging skills, all of a sudden you're able to structure your videos in a way that is going to be more easily received by the person listening by having that. The more clear we can be in our communication, whether that is through what we're saying or the written word, it just makes our entrepreneur life so much easier. I wrote about this in a magazine article recently for Authority Magazine, and we just talked about copywriting, but I talked about how the company that is the most visible almost always wins. And that's the hardest thing. We talked about Matt sitting at that like blank cursor. The more that you know what you need to talk about and the messages you need to convey, the easier it is to become visible. The
Mhm.
more that you can become visible and you can impact that with having this great copy behind you, all of a sudden you start creating an undercurrent, which starts to make your business life feel a little bit easier and it doesn't feel like such an uphill climb.
Yeah, because I think what you're not saying, but let me just double check. When you have that, you can beat that drum so many more times. You can constantly repeat, and not in such a boring, repetitive way, but you can repeat and respin that story and spin that story and just keep pressing into people why you, why this, why now. And you don't
Exactly.
have to constantly feel like you're like scraping at the bottom of the barrel. Like, what am I talking about now? Like, no, we're still talking about the same thing. Like for me, I'm always talking about entrepreneurship and how it creates time and freedom and flexibility that I didn't have before. And so as long as I can show up my kiddo in one moment, it's proving like I get to be there. When he dressed up yesterday, for example, as 100-year-old man day for 100 days of school. And I get to be there, and I wasn't in my city job that I worked a million years ago that, I would have missed it. A caregiver would have taken them to school. So when we just remember like the main thing, to keep the main thing, it makes it a whole lot easier that we're just trying to communicate the same thing all the time. Makes it a little easier.
Totally.
Definitely.
What's one of the key lessons you learned as an entrepreneur? Something you might find yourself saying again and again, maybe a phrase or a quote.
It's funny. I went back to school. This is like back into 2012. I went back to school for a moment in time and I took a nutrition class. What I got most out of this nutrition class, there was a quote that the professor would have at the end of what she would send us. It was an online class. And the quote was, everything's hard before it's easy. This is like what gets me through entrepreneurship is when I feel like something is hard, when things aren't going my way, it's because everything's hard before it's easy. We can think about whether it's just writing a simple email, which used to take hours and hours, and now I can do very quickly, whether it's coming on a podcast and talking to people, which I remember the first time I did a podcast interview, I prepared for like 5 days, had notes in front of me, was like studying, and now I just like jump on and do a podcast. So I think that is what gets me through is even if I'm in an incredibly hard spot and I feel like I'm just, hitting my head against the wall, that this is a temporary thing because it always gets easier.
Hmm. Awesome.
That's so good. I love it.
Awesome. Brenna, how would you define entrepreneurial success?
Gosh, that's a great question. I think it's building the business that supports your monetary goals, your lifestyle goals. And really, to me, that's where the success comes from. It's not, if you just make money, it's not enough. And if you're living the life that you want, but you can't afford it, that's not enough either. So I think it's really building those things together in tandem, which is not always easy. And I do think that we get off balance. We kind of talked about this, at the beginning, and then realigning to keep working towards the goal of making sure that our business supports our lifestyle and that our lifestyle supports our business as well.
Oh, I love it. What's next for you? You already mentioned integrating some ChatGPT. What's next for you? Do you have a new idea percolating already? Is there something that's on the horizon you want to share with us?
This year, I created an interview series where I invited guest experts to come on, and we actually had Voxer conversations about what worked well in their last launch. So when I went into the beginning of 2023, I knew that I was going to really double down on doing 2 of these interview series in 2023 because I knew how much work it was going to be. And then I would be going into 2 cohorts of my pre-launch plan program. So this year, I think it's more, I have been so much in the last year and a half of new ideas, putting new things out there that at this point, what's on the horizon for me is to really double down on what's working and to stick with things so that I'm not bouncing all over the place and then rebranding accordingly. I jumped head in and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh yeah, I need to redo my welcome series, my website, all of these things that need some tweaking, some of this back end maintenance.
Brenna, how can we support you? Is there anything else that you want to mention, or if there's a PDF you want people to go find and download? Tell us your number one place that you like to hang out online as well. Is it Instagram? Tell us.
Yes, you can get my pre-launch cheat sheet, which we talked about the 3 beliefs that people have to have before they buy from you. So I go into that cheat sheet of like, what's the content that you should be creating to actually support those beliefs? You can find that at brennamcgowan.co/cheat sheet. And then you can always find me on Instagram at Brenna McGowan Co.
Thank you so much, Brenna, for coming here today.
Thank you. Bye.
Hey, it's Nicole, and that's the end of the interview. But stick around. This is the part where Matt and I break it all down and give you our favorite takeaways. Listen in.
So, Matt, we just got done talking with Brenna, and I just have to hop in right away with how much I love that she knows the audience she wants to work with
Mhm.
are business owners who create something that has to be launched. So they might be course creators, maybe they're program creators, that might make them coaches and consultants. But she wants to work with people who know what the word launch is. Thus, it was really easy to add pre. And you and your lawyer brain must have loved it. That adding those together filled a gap in the marketplace and helped her stand out in like this blue ocean territory. Like not only did it niche down to exactly those course creator types that are going to be launching something, but it allowed her to just stand out like a giant beacon of hope. Hey, I can help you even before you get to the craziness of launch. I can help you fill seats before that. I thought that was really, really helpful to hear a really different way of niching down.
Yeah, I even think referenced it to a certain degree when she talked about getting distracted and looking at everything else out there because she did start in social, because she did start going into email copy and stuff like that. And then eventually it led her to this path. And even then, sometimes it's probably so easy to get distracted and look at those other things that she's probably pretty darn good at too as well. It's fantastic. It's incredible.
I love it. Okay.
Yep.
Second one, leveraging ChatGPT. Wasn't that powerful to hear than an exercise?
Yes, it was because, it's something that lawyers have been caught up in recently. There's a lot of talk about, will lawyers be doing drafting and things like that? And all of that kind of goes back to, at the end of the day, we still need people. People are still going to look at the situation and go, you know what? There's human emotion. There's certain words that trigger certain emotion. There's certain things that can occur. And even the way she processed it and said, I used it to be able to feed it a story so it could feed a story back to me, so to speak, the map and everything, getting certain words or certain stories back from it. But then you're still going to have to polish it. It's not ready to go. It's not like
right, Right. It's just like that helpful friend that you call.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
you verbally process something, but instead you can stay focused, stay in your lane, and then just do it at your desk. I don't love that then you don't call your friend, but I do love that maybe you cross something off your list of
Don't lie. You're going to say to me at some point in time, did you check this with ChatGPT before you called me? That's what I'm going to get from you at one point in time. You're going to call, you're going to be like, you know what? Did you ask it out loud to ChatGPT? Because you already answered you already answered your own question.
That's fair. That's fair.
Don't waste my time,
Okay.
right?
The third one that we came up with was
Yeah.
just re-emphasizing what her professor told her. Everything is hard before it gets easy. I thought that was really phenomenal. I even have a Nelson Mandela quote behind me. It always seems impossible until it is done. And it's just so true to have those mantras in front of us anytime that it gets hard. And she certainly found her success. That was fantastic. Folks, we only know that you love it if you let us know in a review or share it on social media. And as we always say, if you're listening,
Keep listening.